Well, you know Shabbat Night Live, and maybe if you've been watching our YouTube channel for some time, you know that we've also taken some territory on Sunday, thanks to this guy and Keith Johnson. We've been doing, the Jonah series. We did Climbing Mount Sinai.
Yep.
And then we did the 10 words or the 10 matters based on the 10 commandments.
Yes.
So now what are we doing? We're going to keep this going for a little bit.
Well, I'll tell you something. I have been watching what's been happening here for the last few years, and it's been amazing at A Rood Awakening. Michael is a visionary, and he was a really smart guy. He went and found Ted. And Ted has done an amazing job with this staff to basically continue to keep the ball rolling, but not to just keep it to what it was doing, but to continue to expand it. And so we had a conversation, all of us together, talking about how we could expand. He said, Sundays at 1 o'clock. I used to be a pastor, used to preach on Sundays. I kind of miss it. I'll be honest with you. I really did. So we've been doing Sundays at 1 o'clock at A Rood Awakening. And I got to tell you something. The response of the people, our YouTube specialist, Jacob, says that the responses with the algorithm are really, really, really good. And so we're coming to an end of that, which was this last Sunday. Except we decided for some bonus episodes. And I got to tell a story, because I'm telling this story right now because I am in the presence of Michael Rood. He's actually in the studio. And Scott, I got to tell you something. What's about to be sent for the next 4 weeks has to do with my meeting with him in 2002.
Oh, really?
In 2002, I meet Michael. You've heard this story 1,000 times, and I'm going to tell it 1,000 more. When I was there, I learned about God's time, God's Torah, and God's tetragrammaton. We've got 4 weeks, 4 Sundays. We have a video, short video, about 7 to 8 minutes, on God's time. That's this Sunday. The next week, God's Torah. The next Sunday, God's tetragrammaton. And then the 4th Sunday before Passover 2023, we do an entire webinar free for people who want to go further on God's name. And A Rood Awakening is the best ambassador for God's name than any ministry I have ever seen. So bonus episodes, free, say free.
Free.
Say free.
Free.
We are going to give people all the information. I did something so radical. BFA doesn't know this. I actually went into the paid content and brought it out to make sure that these people that have been so faithful could get it for free.
Oh, wow.
So that's why we did the
that.
BFA. Yeah, we did it because what I'm convinced is that what A Rood Awakening is doing right now, again, the staff, the production people, the vision, the leadership, the reach. We are reaching people. The numbers of people that are reaching is just amazing around the world. So I'm like, why not do this? Let's do everything we can to keep the ball rolling. So Sundays at 1 o'clock, we'll go up until Passover. And then after that, we'll take a break and see if they'll ever let me back again. But at least we've had a good time of giving some good content. And people's response, you have been amazing. Please make sure you comment. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you support A Rood Awakening, because the only reason that we're able to do this is because of the support of those who support the undergirding of what A Rood Awakening is doing. And that's reaching people with the gospel around the world. I mean, it's amazing what you guys are doing. So I'm glad that I get to play this part, and BFA is coming alongside to say, let's put the best of the best to reach the best of the best with the best of the best for the world.
Well, we're very appreciative of you bringing your stuff from the vault.
Yeah, the vault's coming out.
All right.
I want you to imagine having an appointment with God, but not knowing when it's scheduled. Great news. He placed his clock and calendar in the sky for all to see so that you and I would not miss our meetings with him. But wait a minute. Where is this cosmic day timer talked about in Scripture? What if I can show it to you in the first chapter of the Bible? All we have to do is dig a little deeper and get behind the modern English translation to the original text to see it with our own 2 eyes. My name is Keith Johnson of Biblical Foundations Academy International. Our mission is to inspire people around the world to build a biblical foundation for their faith. Welcome to Scripture Bytes. Let's start digging by launching our Scripture Bytes interface.
Loading interface. Uploading scripture.
I'm uploading our control verse to the SBI that will help us expedite the process of discovery so that you'll understand this Scripture Byte for yourself and apply it into your life. Our verse comes from the 1984 New International Version translation. And God said, "Let there be lights in the expanse of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark seasons and days and years." Sounds reasonable. Except the NIV translators used 5 English words to make or break the idea of God creating his cosmic day timer for all to see. Those 5 words are as signs to mark seasons. To the casual reader, You might just move on and assume that this verse is referring to something like the summer or winter solstice that marks seasons of the year. But for those who are willing to slow down and take a closer look, we can discover the intended power and purpose of this verse for God's people. In order to understand this verse better, we need a little context. This scripture bite in Genesis 1:14 takes place in the fourth day of creation, just before the following verses. God made two great lights, the greater light to govern the day and the lesser light to govern the night. He also made the stars. God set them in the expanse of the sky to give light on the earth, to govern the day and the night, and to separate light from darkness. And God saw that it was good, and there was evening, and there was morning, the fourth day. Genesis chapter 1, 15 through 19. Context helps us understand that the two great lights mentioned in our Scripture Byte verse are referring to the sun, the greater light, and the moon, the lesser light. Now that we have some context, let's take a closer look at what I call the source behind the 5 English words as signs to mark seasons. The Hebrew language in the scroll is the source. We read the Hebrew letters from right to left. Vayomer Elohim Yehi Merot Berakia Hashemayim Lehavdil Ben Hayom Uvein Halayla Vahayu Leotot Ulmoadim Ulyamim Veshanim. And God said, "Let there be lights in the expanse of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark seasons and days and years." The two Hebrew words leotot and ulmoadim caused the NIV translators a bit of a challenge. The SBI is going to help us find a solution on how to translate our two Hebrew words into English without losing the meaning of the message. Leotot and ulmoadim are packed with power and purpose. Now for some quick Hebrew linguistic information. The NIV translated leotot into 4 English words as signs to mark. The lamed actually is a preposition to or for, and otot is the plural of the word signs. This is the only time in the entire Hebrew Bible that this exact combination of the lamed preposition and plural spelling leotot is found. However, in Isaiah chapter 8 verse 18, we find what is called the full spelling of leotot. "Here am I, and the children the Lord has given me. We are signs, leotot, spelled with the vav rather than the vowel sign holem between the last 2 letters, which is the sound O. Both references sound the same and mean exactly the same thing. 4 signs." There are 15 other examples of the same lamed preposition with the singular word sign, leot. For example, Genesis chapter 9 verse 13, "The rainbow in the sky shall be leot, for a sign, as a reminder to God of his covenant." Genesis chapter 17 verse 11, "And you shall be circumcised in the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be leot, for a sign of the covenant between me and you." Exodus chapter 12 verse 13, "The blood shall be for you leot, for a sign on the houses where you live, and when I see the blood I will pass over you." Notice that the sign is something we and he sees that reminds both parties of the significance of the sign. There are actually 83 times the root word ot is used in a variety of ways. Now for the word that reveals God's cosmic day timer, ulmoadim. This Hebrew word was translated into one word, seasons, when in fact, the literal translation would require 3 English words, and 4 appointments or meetings. Our word ulmoadim starts with a vav as a conjunction, translated as and. Then we see the lamed, just like in the word leotot, used as a preposition, meaning to or for. The word moadim is the plural of a really important word, moed, used 224 times in Scripture, meaning appointed time, place, or meeting. We are getting really close to the scriptural meaning now. The literal translation for ulmoadim in this context would be "and for appointments" or meetings. You know, like the appointments that get scheduled on a day timer. Here is an interesting statistical nugget. There are 6 times that the word ulmoadim with these same 3 aspects of conjunction, preposition, and plural moadim are found in the Bible. 4 of those times, 1 Chronicles 23:31, 2 Chronicles 2:4, 2 Chronicles 8:13, and 2 Chronicles 31:3, the NIV translated the word as appointed feast. And one of those times, in Zechariah chapter 8, verse 19, they translated ulmoadim as happy festivals. In our control verse, they decided to translate Ulmoadim as seasons, which is cause for a pause regarding why they switched up in this verse. As I mentioned earlier, their translation of our Hebrew word Ulmoadim brings to mind the seasons of fall, winter, spring, or summer, rather than the intended meaning of appointments/meetings that God has set on his calendar to meet with his people. I find it interesting that the singular Hebrew word moed is based on the three-letter root ye'ad, yud, ayin, dalet, which is found 440 times in the Hebrew Bible in 7 different forms. To appoint, meet, appointed place, appointed time or place, appointment, noadiah, a name, congregation, or time. One of those 7 forms is moed, which is found 281 times and translated into 15 different English words. As an example, in Genesis chapter 17, verse 21, "But my covenant I will establish with Isaac, whom Sarah will bear to you by this time next year." You will see the word moed behind the English word time in the NIV. Another great example is Exodus chapter 9, verse 5. "The Lord set a definite time, saying, tomorrow the Lord will do this thing in the land." In this verse, the English translators use 2 English words, definite time, to show the significance of the one Hebrew word moed. Some other English words used when they translated moed include appointed assembly, feasts, festivals, meeting, place, set, sign, and time. The top 3 most popular English words moed is translated into are meeting, 150 times, appointed, 52 times, time, 26 times. There is a great verse that has what I call a Scripture Byte twofer. In other words, it includes both moed and its root ya'ad to show exactly what this powerful word means. In 2 Samuel chapter 20, verse 5, we find, "So Amasa went to call out the men of Judah, but he delayed longer than the set time, moed, which he had appointed him, ya'ado." Set time, moed, and appointed him, ya'ado, provide us a true Scripture Bytes twofer. Do you see the value of getting behind the English language in order to get a better idea of how an original source word is used in its intended meaning? There is a verse in Psalms 104, verse 19 that says, "He made the moon lemoadim," for appointments or meetings, not seasons. Now it's time for our Scripture Byte to be read in today's modern English language, but with the original text in view, ready for you to download to your mind and hide in your heart. "And God said, let there be lights in the sky to separate day and night, and let them be for signs and for appointments and for days and years." That's the SBV, Scripture Bytes version. I find it creative on God's part that our Scripture Byte verse uses the word Ulmoadim, determined by the moon, Ulyamim, determined by the sun, and Veshanim, determined by both the moon and the sun, the 2 great lights. The idea is that you and I would see the sun rise and set within the 24-hour period, and the moon go through its phases within a 29 to 30-day period, and we would know what time our meeting with God is scheduled. This ancient biblical clock is still ticking, and we can sync our lives to it today. The Scriptures are filled with references to God's clock and its importance for us people. You just have to do a little digging. I'm Keith Johnson, and until next time, I have 2 words for you. Keep reading.
This is your SBI assistant. Did you enjoy this Scripture Byte? If so, share it with your friends. Be sure to become a free member at bfainternational.com to download a PDF companion study guide for this edition of Scripture Bytes. Visit bfainternational.com today to join the conversation.